Good day to you, and welcome to episode 2, Using Data to Solve Truck Parking Shortages and Why You Should Care. I am the Data Boss Lady, Dr. Holly K. Neal, and welcome to my podcast on April the 28th, 2024. If you miss episode number 1, you miss a treat. So please go back and review it because I left some gems there so that you know just how data is impacting you as a mobile app user and consumer. In this episode, we're going to touch on Jason's Law, understand why it exists, who is Jason, what is the connection to the food industry, how we can use the data that's been collected to help in this particular movement, as well as cover some of the metrics and how some of them may have changed over the past decade or those that may not have changed. Before we dive in, for those of you who may not be familiar with who I am, as I mentioned before, my name is Holly. I have more than 30 years of experience in information technology space. Specifically, I've done data migration, sat on several application development projects, as well as mobile app development, web services, and data analytics. I've also managed databases, you name it, from Informix, Microsoft SQL Server, also Oracle databases, so as well as Teradata. And I've also done quite a bit of data profiling, data management, data massaging, cleansing, as well as heavy data analysis. My education is specifically in the space of information technology. My bachelor's of science is in business administration, and I earned that from Xavier University, which is the Jesuit university located in Cincinnati, Ohio. Specifically, I focused and earned my degree in management information systems. My master's of education is in general education, and I earned that from Union Institute and University, which is also located in Cincinnati, Ohio. My master's of science is in information technology management, and I earned that from Western Governors University. Then my doctor of education is in higher education leadership, which I earned from Union Institute and University. So that's a little bit about me. So let's jump right in. So, what is Jason's Law? Just so that people are familiar. For starters, Jason's Law is really the moving ahead for progress in the 21st Century Act, which became effective in legislation around October the 1st, 2012. And the primary reason why it was established was there were several reasons for improving the safety of the motorized and non-motorized users, specifically commercial drivers. And that would be those drivers that, you see on the road that are semi-truck drivers. You may hear other people use terms like owner operator. So just so you're familiar with the terms. And most of those drivers are long haul or either short haul drivers. And unfortunately, currently, it's an ongoing problem. It has been for quite some time now. And with, owner operators being able to find a safe place for them to rest and park when they're attempting to make deliveries on behalf of the consumer. So, thinking about the supply chain, like we discussed last week, that impacts grocery deliveries as well as food in different types of ways, this is really connected to the same because when you think about delivery, who's bringing our food, how are they being treated, and whether or not they can get to their destination safely. What many people may not realize, unless they have family members who are actively working in that particular field, owner operators are required to take a certain rest period. And most of them will have rest periods over the weekend, but then require you know, places to rest during the week as well, where they need to be able to pull over to the side of the road, whether it's at a truck stop or whether it's private or public, but be able to have a safe place to actually park their vehicle until they can make their delivery. So Jason's Law is actually named in honor of Jason Rivenberg. His wife Hope has been since his death. She has really been diligent in bringing attention to the problem with the shortage in parking, and the reason for this is because on March the 5th, 2009, Jason had stopped for a delivery in the Virginia area, and he was actually headed towards South Carolina at the time. And although he was roughly about 12 miles from his delivery location, which is not uncommon for most truck drivers, they may be very close to their delivery location. But when it's time for them to park to get rest based on the requirements from the Department of Transportation, and taking that rest period before you can make the delivery, he actually he didn't have a safe place at that particular time to park. So by word of mouth, Jason had heard that, and just learning from different truckers that had previously made deliveries in the area, he had learned that he could park at a location until he could make the final delivery at the destination where he was headed. Unfortunately and sadly, Jason was attacked and murdered at the location where he had slept, and his killer took his life as well as $7 from his wallet, which is sad. So Hope, his wife, since his death, had been very diligent about bringing awareness to some of the issues that are impacting our owner operators and commercial motor vehicle drivers, which I am so glad that she has done that, because again, this does impact us, believe it or not. Jason's Law basically is a mandate, and it requires the U.S. Department of Transportation to conduct a series of assessments and surveys in order to monitor as well as measure through metrics whether or not there is adequate parking for owner operators who are making deliveries across the United States. This is basically to ensure that, based on the traffic flow as well as the commercial vehicle traffic from a volume perspective, that there is a safe place for those, whether male or female, that they have a place to rest as well as pull over in order to make their make their stops prior to making their final delivery. And in 2015, the U.S. Department of Transportation, in conjunction with the Federal Highway Administration, had reported some results. And those are some of the results that I just want to share with this audience for this particular podcast, just for awareness purposes, so that people are familiar with some of the changes that had been made since that time, but also based on some of the data that I pulled here recently, which was actually a few days ago, on this same matter and same topic, to see how much, traction has been made for each one of the states that I actually analyzed. Specifically, the owner operators had identified several states where there were either low availability of adequate parking, and so therefore those states were identified as having shortages in safe parking for owner operators. And specifically within the states of Florida, I also looked at Alabama, North Carolina, Connecticut. because some of those were actually named from the owner operators in the report that the U.S. Department of Transportation, in conjunction with the Federal Highway Administration, had shared. But they actually had obtained several of these details from the owner operators themselves that actually completed the surveys. And what I found pretty alarming, and which is really a concern, is that the the plan for, or the priority, I should say, for the different states to create an area for the truckers to actually pull over to the side of the road, whether it's create another truck stop for them, or whether it's public or private, or purchase land so that they have a place to rest. I found it pretty alarming on some of the changes that had or had not been made across the United States. And in particular, when I looked at Florida, Florida actually in 2015, they had 2,529 rest, or not rest places, but they actually had available parking at that particular time. And what was really interesting to me was that over a period of roughly about 9 years or so since they had released these results in the metrics for the data for the 2015 report, there were approximately 453 added, which was a substantial change from before. So now they're coming in roughly around 2982 for the actual improvements that they've made over time. But then when I looked at Arkansas, they actually had coming in second as far as making some improvements. They were sitting at roughly about 194, and they actually increased from 194 to 372, which was a substantial change of 178 more available parking for the drivers, which it says much when you see states making changes, which was saddening for me, I guess, because I'm in a North Carolina area, and knowing that I've seen so many different signs posted here recently where they're signs on the side of the road or on entrance ramps, exit ramps, where it would say no truck, no overnight truck parking or things of that nature. But going back to how this impacts the food industry, if you only have in the Mecklenburg County area, if you only have roughly 17 parking spaces for owner operators, and you have hundreds of thousands of shipments being delivered each day, that's a problem. And to see that North Carolina, they only made an increase of 35 more parking since 2015. It seems like it's kind of low on a priority, to be honest. But then the really sad part that I saw, because I know that in California, it's even worse, where California, not only do the owner operators, having a family member who works in that space, owner operators have to pay a substantial amount just to park overnight. It's like a meter. It's basically a meter where they have to put money, they have to pay a meter for them to park there. If you don't care about getting your product or your food, I can understand that. But what I cannot understand is how not only do you charge owner operators a substantial amount to park somewhere when you're the one who needs your food. And then when you come back to the data, California made absolutely no changes. Actually, they took one away. So what does that say? If you have one less rest area for the truckers to park, is that saying you have it on the top of your priority or it's pretty low? It's really disheartening to understand that there was a mandate from the Department of Transportation and understanding that the state level administrators have placed it lower on their priority list. But yet, when COVID hit, people were complaining about not being able to receive food on time. This is a problem. The supply chain is made possible when you have individuals who are able to safely make deliveries on time. This is why you should care, because if there's another pandemic and we already have more truckers over the road making long hauls as well as short haul deliveries, and they may not work for the direct grocery store. They may work as an owner operator because the grocery store is short staffed with having truck drivers who can actually make those deliveries. If the owner operator is not able to get there safely, your food will not arrive on time either, or it may not arrive at all. So think about that. I just wanted to leave these, thoughts on the group today because honestly, it is an issue. One way that we can change this is you contact your state representatives to find out how transparent are they being with this data with the U.S. Department of Transportation. There are U.S. Department of Transportation open data is what they call it, reports that are out there related to truck stop parking. So feel free to Google it, research it yourselves so that you know how this can impact us as consumers. And from a data space, the data is there, it's available. They heard it straight from the truck drivers themselves. We must stop this. We cannot continue to ignore the needs of those who need to sleep safely in their trucks. They should not feel as if they are homeless when they're out there. So I thank you all for listening today. Episode number 2. I am the Data Boss Lady, Dr. Holly K. Neal, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.